good old GOAT debate. Sergio Ramos is undoubtedly one of the best defenders to have ever played the beautiful game. But is he the greatest defender of this generation? Now let me remind you that there have been many great defenders over the years. We've been fortunate to witness Giorgio Chiellini, Carles Puyol, Gerard Piqué, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, and this isn't even the end of the list. There have been so many players since the 2000s who can stake their claim as the greatest centre-back of this generation. But the centre-back position does not really have a stat to showcase a player's ability like goals or assists do for a forward. Yes, tackles per game is a very good stat for a defender. But we must remember that these stats have not been properly documented until the early 2010s, much like the passing stats for a midfielder. So, after spending a lot of time researching the best way to rank these defenders, I've come up with my own formula for this based on individual awards along with team accomplishments. And by the end of this video, it'll be clear to everyone watching on who the greatest defender of this generation is. Welcome back to AR Football. If you find this video interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'll be uploading every week with topics related to football. The first step I took towards achieving the answer to this question was to go through the ranking list of various writers. But none of these lists had any concrete reasoning in their rankings for the players and were mostly based on the author's bias towards the players. I found other fan-driven polls, and don't even get me started on those lists. This list here, taken from a fan poll and written in 2022, has Gary Neville over Dani Alves. Dani Alves, who is the most decorated player in football history, falls short to the greatness of Gary Neville according to these fans. Now don't get me wrong, Gary Neville was an incredible player, but you need to get drug tested immediately if you have him over Dani Alves in any type of list that involves playing football. Since every list I found online was ranked from the author's point of view or fan rankings which made no sense whatsoever, I decided to create my own formula for ranking defenders based on what I thought were the most unbiased and reasonable metrics. Before we get to those metrics, the first step was to decide on who would be eligible for this list. And since we're specifically talking about this generation, I decided not to include players who had played and retired before the year 2000. The reason for this is because I never got to see these players play, and frankly, whatever we know of these players is solely from hearsay, because we don't have nearly the amount of game footage of these players compared to the players that played after the year 2000. This means that greats like Franz Beckenbauer, Franco Baresi, and Bobby Moore will not be taken into consideration here. There are some players who are on the grey line having played in both the 90s and the 2000s. But to justify the title of this video, players who had played a larger part of their careers in the 90s were excluded. So Paolo Maldini, who is arguably the greatest of all time, had to be removed from contention for this list. Even after considering the first two rules, there were still thousands of players left to choose from. Along with the fact that football isn't played in a single league like the NBA or the NFL and is spread across multiple leagues all over the world, this only left the UCL, the World Cup, the Euros, and the Copa America as the four major competitions where every world-class player has had the opportunity to play in. So the final eligibility rule was decided such that a player would need to have been nominated in the team of the tournament of these four competitions for at least a combined total of 3 times. There have been over 50 defenders who have been nominated in at least one team of the tournament. And after applying the final eligibility rule, we're only left with 11 players. So now that we've decided on the players eligible for this accolade, there needed to be an unbiased method to rank these players. I came up with a point-based system combining both individual and team accomplishments. Points were allocated for each achievement, with individual awards holding more weight over a team trophy. The Ballon d'Or, which is the highest individual accomplishment a player could have achieved, was set at the top of the table with 10 points. If a player had won the UEFA Player of the Year trophy, he'd be awarded with 9 points. And upon being nominated in the Team of the Year for either the UCL, the World Cup, the Euros, or the Copa America, the player would be granted with 7 points. I didn't consider a League Team of the Year nomination, as only a few leagues such as the Premier League have tracked this since the 2000s. Moving on to team accomplishments. Winning the World Cup is the greatest achievement in the sport, and the winner was fittingly allocated with 5 points. If the player was victorious in either the Euros or the Copa America, he would be granted with 4 points. I decided to do the same with the UCL, since I believe it is equally more difficult to win. Finally, a league title would award a player with 3 points, and any of the other cups and domestic cups would give a player 2 points. This marks the end of the point-based ranking system. But we know that football isn't solely stat-based. There are certain aspects of the sport that can't be quantified. For example, leadership or impact on the game are metrics that can't be measured quantitatively. Therefore, I decided to take all the intangibles along with the stats into account to create my own list of the greatest defenders of this generation. Keep in mind, this second list is going to be purely my own take on the topic. So yes, it will be biased. Well, now that we've established the eligibility and point system, the only thing left was to apply these ranking metrics onto the players. So without further ado, here are the greatest defenders of this generation, based purely on individual and team accomplishments. At number 11 with 56 points, this is someone who none of you would have predicted to be placed here. It's Fabio Cannavaro. Now I know this doesn't make sense because he won the Ballon d'Or, so he's probably one of the best players ever, right? But throughout his career, he's only managed to be nominated in the Team of the Year once, for each the UCL, the World Cup and the Euros, along with only having managed to win 2 league titles and 5 domestic cups. If these rankings were based exclusively on the player's peak, then he'd probably be on top of the list if not top 5, considering the fact that he'd won the World Cup and the Ballon d'Or in 2006. But since we're taking overall career achievements into perspective, he doesn't even come close to being the greatest defender of this generation. Next up at number 10, edging out with just 1 point over the last spot at 57, we've got Ricardo Carvalho. Nothing much to be said here. He's managed to have the same number of Team of the Year nominations as Cannavaro, but has won significantly more team trophies, while also winning the Euros and the UCL, along with having won 4 more league titles and 5 more domestic cups or other cups compared to Cannavaro. At number 9, we've got our first active player on the list. With 65 points, it's Virgil van Dijk. Even though he was late bursting onto the scene, similar to Cannavaro, he's in the conversation for the greatest peak year of a defender. In 2019, he managed to win the FIFA Best Award along with being the UEFA Player of the Year. He's managed to accumulate 4 UCL Team of the Year nominations along with securing the 2019 Champions League title with Liverpool. He's won a total of 3 league titles and 6 domestic or other cups. If he keeps playing the way he has been for the last 4 years, he could easily be placed further up these rankings by the time he retires. Ranked at 8th, we've got John Terry. And honestly, if we were able to include League Team of the Year nominations, he would probably be way higher on this list. He's the only player on this list to have won both the UCL and the Europa League, while also managing to win 5 league titles and 10 domestic cups in the process. Next up at 7, with 68 points, we've got another surprisingly low-ranked player in Alessandro Nesta. He is one of the players who you'll see go up in these rankings later on when I reveal my list. The AC Milan legend was nominated in the Team of the Year 5 times, as well as winning the World Cup once for Italy, along with 2 UCLs and 3 league titles, accompanied by 11 domestic and other cups, while forming that legendary partnership with Paolo Maldini. He is undoubtedly one of the best to ever do it. At 6, it's Pepe, the second most important player, if not the most important player in the 2016 Euros winning Portuguese team. In my opinion, one of the most underrated centre-backs of this generation. His ability often gets overshadowed by his on-field antics, but he truly does deserve a spot here. He's accumulated 3 Team of the Year nominations while also adding a Euros title to it. He's won 3 Champions League trophies and 7 league titles, in addition to 17 domestic and other cups. I've not included the Nations League win as it was only introduced in 2019. The next player, ranked at number 5, has had a very Maldini-esque career. David Alaba started off at Bayern as a left back before slowly becoming a CDM in Pep's team, after which he has made the centre-back position his home. Being a crucial member of the Bayern dynasty and currently a Real Madrid great in the making, Alaba has only been nominated in the Team of the Year 3 times, but his team accomplishments push him over the top. He has won the UCL 3 times and has won the league more than anyone else on this list, with an astonishing total of 11 league titles. Along with all this, he's also managed to add 17 domestic and other cups to his name. You can say all you want about him having an advantage by being at Bayern, but there is no doubt about this man's ability or greatness in the game. Ranked at 4th, it's Thiago Silva, who is also another very underrated player because most of his playing career has been with PSG. But people tend to forget the fact that he used to play for AC Milan and has adapted seamlessly into the current Chelsea side, meaning he's managed to prove his class across 3 of the top 5 leagues in Europe. Silva has been nominated to 6 Team of the Years, while winning the Copa America, the Confederations Cup and the UCL 1 time each. He has won 8 league titles in total, accompanied with 19 domestic and other cups. Adding all of the points gained from these accomplishments, he's managed to rake in 90 points to fix his spot at number 4. Moving on to the top 3 players, we finally got our first player who's managed to get over 100 points. It's Carles Puyol with 109 points. Known as one of the greatest leaders on the pitch, Puyol has had a remarkable career. He has managed a total of 8 Team of the Year nominations, in addition to winning the World Cup and the Euros once with Spain. His time at Barcelona saw him win 3 Champions Leagues, 6 league titles, and a remarkable 14 domestic or other titles. Along with Nesta, he is the only player on this list to have started his career before the year 2000. Truly one of the greats of the game. At number 2, this may come as a surprise to non-Barca fans, is Gerard Piqué. He's edged out Puyol by just 3 points and will surely be adding more titles to his name. Or will he? Well, regardless of how bad Barcelona have coped with Messi's departure, Piqué has been a significantly better player than what other fans might want you to believe. He has been nominated 6 times in the different Team of the Years, but his cabinet is filled with a ridiculous amount of trophies from his time at Barcelona, Manchester United and Spain. Part of the World Cup 2010 and the Euros 2012 winning team, Piqué has also managed to win 4 Champions Leagues with a remarkable 9 league titles in addition to winning an astonishing 18 domestic or other cups. Finally, the last player on this list, while being the first from the top, it's Mr. 9248, Sergio Ramos Garcia, the man who masterminded one of the most dramatic comebacks in the history of the game, the only centre-back to have been a part of all 3 titles in the Spain dynasty, winning the Euros twice in 2008 and 2012, while also adding a World Cup trophy right in the middle of that in 2010. Being a Real Madrid fan myself, I can talk about Sergio Ramos for hours at an end, and it still won't be enough to explain how vital he has been for Madrid. He has the highest number of Team of the Year nominations compared to everyone else on the list, with a remarkable 11 selections to his name. Very unfortunate to have missed out on the Ballon d'Or, the UEFA Player of the Year, and the FIFA Best Award due to his prime coinciding with Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. He has won the Champions League 4 times, along with being the captain of the Real Madrid dynasty that became the first team to win back-to-back-to-back. In other terms, the first three-peat of the Champions League era. However, Messi's Barcelona had an otherworldly grip on La Liga, due to which Ramos has only managed to win 6 league titles, along with 10 domestic or other cups. Playing for PSG now, these numbers are surely going to increase, and he will keep distancing himself further and further away from any other centre-back to have ever played in this generation. With that, we've come to the end of the accomplishments-based list. However, like I said before, football can't be measured solely on stats or accomplishments. The eye test is one of the factors that play a part in truly knowing a player's ability and impact on the game. So, taking all of the intangibles into account, such as leadership, team situation, league discrepancies, and from what the eye test has shown us, this is the ranking order that I've come up with. Psych! You really thought I was going to put up my own rankings here just for people to shit on them? Yeah, I know better than to do that. If you can come up with a better ranking scheme than this, please let me know in the comment section and I'll make sure to read them. If you're at this stage of the video and haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I'm trying to reach 1000 subscribers by the end of this month, so if you enjoyed this type of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as I'll be uploading every week with topics like this. My next video is going to be a very interesting take on the GOAT debate, so turn on post notifications as well.